And there you go. If everyone just acknowledges that. Well, good afternoon. I'm Marina Van Breda, and I am the Director of Voter Registration for the League of Women Voters of the Fairfax area. I want to both acknowledge, thank, and introduce Emma-Beth Tedesse, who is both our operations specialist for the League. So she is our one actual employee, but she's also a super volunteer who's done many events for us and is an incredible resource to me, the other people who are involved with the League on a day-to-day basis. She's also a good resource for all of you who are either presumably League members or about to become so, or are volunteers for any of our events. So welcome to everyone. Can I just get a show of hands? Are all of those of you on the call, I know Maureen is, but the others, are you all League members or planning to be members? You're not, Lynn. No, I know you and I have spoken.
Right. Okay.
But that's fine.
Okay.
Lynn is interested in doing some of our events. So what we're going to do today, and we're going to do this in as time efficient manner as I can manage, which is to try to do a review of voter registration when the League is doing events and hosting events. And we generally assume people are either members or are interested in what the League's mission is. And will, if they work on our events, they're welcome to, but they have to abide by our rules and regulations. And our primary rule is that we are always nonpartisan. That is a founding principle of the League. We do not endorse political parties. We do not endorse particular candidates. And anytime you are working at a League event, and trust me, I get it, we all have strong partisan opinions, or many of us do, I'm assuming. But when you're working for the League, at a League event, we do ask that you keep those in a separate compartment and represent the best values of the League, which is to, our motto as an organization is to empower voters and defend democracy. And we do that in an absolute party blind way. We are simply there to help voters. I'm going to go to our slideshow with luck so that I can share with you some of the materials that I put up there, mostly to serve as a reminder for me. Since we are a small group, I may not be able to see you while I'm talking and looking at the slides, but Emma-Beth should, and she'll keep track. If you have questions, either raise a hand or put them in the chat, and then we'll try to deal with them as we go along. But I will try to cover everything we're going to need during this presentation. So let me just find my slideshow. And that is here. And we will go to, okay. Okay, and actually, let me do this. Let me start at the beginning. That would be better. Okay, so you can all see my screen and hopefully that first slide. And just as a reminder, the League is an outgrowth of the women's suffrage movement. That makes us 102 years old. The League was started immediately after successful ratification of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote. And many of the women leaders of the suffrage movement decided, well, you know, there's now 50% of the population that's going to be able to vote, or at least theoretically able to vote. So let's make sure that they have the information that they need in order to be educated and informed voters. That's when our principle of doing things in a nonpartisan way and to provide primarily education and encouragement and whatever else we can do, including voter registration, to facilitate the ability of now not just women, but obviously all people to be able to vote. Our look has changed a little bit in the last 102 years. Our tools have changed, but the basic principles remain the same. So the voter registration is one of the core functions of the League. We do have many other aspects, but empowering voters by facilitating their education and their ability to participate in the democratic process by registering and voting is a significant portion of that. And this is my personal idea of how best to represent the values that I believe in, which is that we need a vibrant, active, and highly participatory democracy in order to continue to maintain the ideals on which this country was at least theoretically founded. So I put my efforts into voter registration. I would like to say that there are other areas where the League does do very important work as well. In addition to our voter outreach efforts, we also do some lobbying. Now, again, this is not partisan, but there are values that the League studies and studies in a very deliberative and, again, participatory process. So League members are asked to vote on our positions, and then we will advocate for specific positions, often but not exclusively related to voting rights and voting activities. And we do that at both a local, state, and federal level. So if you are interested in the League and you want to participate, but maybe not necessarily doing voter registration, I would urge you to put that high on your list of priorities, because that's my job, is to do the voter registration stuff. But there are other ways to participate, and the League's advocacy and lobbying group is one way to do that. I will say that it's been a little challenging. I've been in this job basically starting in the middle of the pandemic, and so all of my participation in the League has often been in this format, a 2D on somebody's computer screen. But we are doing more and more in-person voter registration events now that some of the COVID restrictions are becoming a little bit loosened and the risk is lower. We obviously still are not back to all of the activities that we used to do in the past, or just assume we're always going to be there, but we are trying to ramp back up. When you get to do the in-person events, what's really nice is that the 2D friends that you've made on Zoom screens become 3D living, breathing human beings, and you do get to make new friends, talk to people from all over our county and actually all over Virginia, because some of our events are draw from multiple parts of the Northern Virginia area, and there are lots of ways to participate. So voter registration, as I said, is my job. I'm the director for voter registration for our League area, and it really is a passion for me. And for those of you who were Star Wars fan in the original version of the Star Wars, recognize that's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I really do feel like all of us have to be a little bit of a Jedi master in terms of our dedication to what it is we're doing, which is to empower voters. So I will definitely, I'm very happy with that logo. It definitely reflects me. So why are we doing this? Geez, obviously I wasn't watching my spelling. I spelled something wrong there, but where and how are we doing this? Oh dear, I seem to have lost the ability to control the slide function. Oh, you gotta love it. There we go. My computer is apparently a little touchy. So right now, what we are concentrating on in terms of when you're finished with this training, I hope you'll feel very comfortable that you're going to be able to do voter registration events. And these are the types of events, and we'll talk about some of them in more detail later on. But some of the types of events that we are focusing on and really are trying to recruit for, where we really need the most help. And I'm going to start right off with our new citizen ceremonies, because this has been our largest project to date. As of yesterday, we have registered over 2,000 new voters, all brand new citizens, or almost all brand new citizens. We go to the ceremonies. We usually do it 2 days a month. They're right now being held primarily in the Murrayfield area of Fairfax at our local district office for the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. And we're there. You can do shifts. It's usually about 3 hours or so, but we're there all day, and we register over 200 citizens, new citizens at a time, to get them registered to vote. And this is one of the most rewarding things you can do, because People are very emotional. They've just become US citizens after anywhere from a 5 to 7 year process. They're excited about being Americans. They're excited about the right to vote. And the minute they are finished being sworn in, they turn around and it's the League of Women Voters at the back room saying, we will now register you to vote. And they're very appreciative. It's very emotional. Everybody ends up in tears at least once, and there are always tears of joy. So if you really want that serotonin rush of doing something that feels very good, I can't recommend these strongly enough. We also do many neighborhood festivals. This was in the top right-hand corner of this slide. It's the Reston Pride Festival. That was this past June. And we got people registered to vote. We got them an opportunity to update their voter registration information. And it was a lot of fun for all of our volunteers, and the participants really enjoyed having us there. Every fall, there's one day of the year, National Voter Registration Day, where we try to do a big bang effort. It's kind of our single highest visibility, highest need one event program, National Voter Registration Day. We partner with Fairfax County Public Libraries, and we will be at every one of the open Fairfax County Public Library branches. And we, again, are registering voters, helping them make sure that their information is up to date, explaining to them the processes or the alternatives for how to vote, whether it's absentee or early in person or on election day. So it's high impact because we do get to speak to hundreds of our neighbors. And it's just it's a very fun, a rewarding day. So I encourage you to consider signing up for that. That's going to be September 20th this year. And I'll talk a little bit more about the details of that. We do events kind of all over. You can see several of us. I'm wearing my League t-shirt today. It's amazing to me that it hasn't fallen apart from as much wear as it gets. But we do encourage people to identify themselves with the League and with our values doing events. So just a reminder. And my plug for our merchandise: you can buy nice t-shirts, long sleeves and short sleeves, at our website. And if you have information about that, Emma Beck can get us the link before the event is over. We do try to show up in as many different areas of the county as possible, because we want people to know that the League of Women Voters is a trusted, reliable voice for voting information. And we are backed up in that effort by the registrar's office. Fairfax County Registrar and Fairfax City Registrar knows that we do what we say we do, which is nonpartisan, highly reliable, and very careful work and voter registration. So we've talked about some of these points already, but I'm just going to remind you all. We're always going to be careful when we're representing the League that we are being nonpartisan. We do ask that you wear a League identifier, either one of our nice t-shirts. If you don't have a t-shirt, no problem. Anytime we have an event, we will have a bag stuffed with goodies. I'm going to show you on my stop share for a second. We have bags like this. We have red and blue. I personally like purple because that way you don't get any charges of being, partisan in any way. And believe me, we'll not waste 1 second in accusing you of partisan bias, but that'll be the next generation. But so in these nice bags, there'll be all kinds of information, all of the flyers and forms that we'll be talking about today. But we also have pins or little stickers you can put on your shirt that identify you as a League member. And for those of you who come to our new citizen events, we have an encouragement to join us, which are these really nice, very large pins that say "Register to vote now, ask me how." And these are given as a thank you gift to those people who sign up for more than one of the U.S. new citizen events. I will do whatever it takes to get people to volunteer because we need you. So now let's go back to my slides, and they are here. Okay. Also in our bags, we will have resources for you. You'll usually, there will not be a case in which you will be asked to do an event where there isn't someone else there. If you are new to this, that you will not be paired with someone who is experienced. So that's your number one resource, is your partner who's going to be working with you. We also have notebooks in our bags that will have fact sheets that you can refer to, as well as websites that you can refer voters or citizens to answer their questions. We don't want you to ever guess. Don't represent anything that you're not certain of. My phone number is always included on my emails, and you can use me as a resource. But there will be lots of other resources. So just try to be very accurate and circumspect in what you are representing, because there actually is a criminal penalty if you knowingly misrepresent data. But we don't want anything being misrepresented. It calls our objectivity and our reliability into question. So just always avail yourself of the resources that are available. Another very important reminder that has to stay in the top of your mind whenever we're doing anything is that when we are doing our events and we're doing voter registration, you get a paper voter registration form. You will have someone's name, address, but date of birth, social security number. This is obviously highly sensitive information, because if that gets into the wrong hands, it could create havoc. One of the things that when you have taken the Virginia training, the mandated state training, and I should have asked this first and I forgot, has everyone done that? Their mandated state training? Yes, everybody's saying yes, good, okay. But you sign an affidavit at the end of that that says that I will abide by all the rules and regulations and laws pertaining to voter registration. And if you read the fine print, it says under penalty of law. So it's a legal document that you have signed saying you will comply with this. And one of the important provisions in that is you always have to treat everyone's sensitive personal and financial information, or potentially shareable information, in a protected way. So when you gather up someone's voter registration form, there's an opaque envelope where you want to keep that. They're never left unguarded. They are never left unattended. Keep that within your line of sight at all times. And I treat them like a hot potato. When I get voter registration forms, and yesterday we collected over 200, we want to get those to the voter registrars as quickly as possible, because that's A, our legal obligation, and B, I don't want them, out and around. So they're always under some sort of protection, so that they're not left flying around. And I always feel relieved when I've got them dropped off. And one other good reminder is that we are not at any of our events to settle contentious issues that are out there right now about elections. Don't engage in arguments. They're often bad faith arguments. People will try to get a rise out of you. You may be accused of, standing in for one party over another. Just you simply defer or walk away. It hasn't really happened very much, but there's always that potential, particularly as we get closer to election day. We are not there to work for any one party. We are simply there working for the voters. Okay, so voter registration is the focus of today. An important reminder: while we concentrate on doing collecting paper voter registration forms, that's what we'll be talking about. That the only reason we're talking about that is because that often is the primary way in which we're collecting this information and helping people get registered to vote, because everything else they can do without us. But important to remember, it is not the only way, and not necessarily even the preferred way, for people to register to vote. One way, not the most convenient, particularly if you've dealt with the DMV lately, you'll know that going to the DMV office to do anything is very time consuming, often frustrating and unsuccessful. But people can, if they're there anyway, both register to vote and update their voter registration information. So for the young kids who are getting driver's license and stuff like that, they're actually automatically registered to vote. And later on this year, at the beginning of October, a new law goes into effect, which right now, if you're going to turn 18 prior to the next election, so 17-year-olds and up can get registered automatically at the DMV. There's a new law going into effect after October 1st that 16-year-olds and older will be what they're calling pre-registered. What that means is their information will be gathered. They will not be able to vote, but when they become eligible to vote, they will then be put through the process. They will get their voter registration card. Now, how that's going to work is another matter, because if kids move in between, then they're going to have to get their information updated, but that is going to be out there. We are trying not to emphasize that or really force that issue until the law goes into effect. But if someone asks you, you can say yes, but not until October. Now, the other way, and probably the preferred way for people to register to vote, is online. The citizen portal for the Virginia Department of Elections is extremely easy to use. It's extremely easy to remember. We put it on all our literature, and this is one of those things that you should kind of write down or memorize, because if you just roll it off the tip of your tongue, you can give people a lot of information right there. And it's vote.elections.virginia.gov. And it's easy to remember. We want them to vote in elections in Virginia. And it's a government function. So vote.elections.virginia.gov. And it's called the Citizen Portal. It allows you to register. It allows you to update your voter registration information, allows you to find out where you're going to vote. It allows you to find out who your elected representatives are. So, I mean, that is just such a great resource. And while we also have League of Women Voters resources that will give people the same information, most of that, the League stuff funnels directly to the Virginia Department of Elections website. So it's vote.elections.virginia.gov. We try to make that as easy as possible for people to use. And nowadays, because everybody has a cell phone, the easiest thing for people to do, instead of typing out a URL, Google searching it, possibly getting a bad website, is we use QR codes. Because all you have to do, for those of you not familiar, and I've had people tell me, I've heard about them, but I've never used them. So for those of us who are older, learn a new trick, impress the kids and grandkids, and know how a QR code works. And basically, most modern cell phones, all you have to do is point the camera function of your cell phone at a QR code, and a little thing comes up on the screen and says, do you want to go to that website? And it will directly push them to the website. So at the high school and at the USCIS, the new citizen events, very often, most of the younger people are just like, oh, you have a QR code, great. They just grab it and then they go. Now, I will also say that the problem with doing that is you have to then expect that they will actually complete the process. Because while opening that website is easy, in order to use it, you need not just your social security number, you also need your Virginia driver's ID number. And all of us who have driver's license, and those of us who are not drivers, but have a Virginia issued ID, you'll have an ID number on that. But I know my social security number. I've known it for my whole life, but I don't know what my driver's license number is. So there is always a possibility people will open it up, say, oh, yeah, I'll do it later. And then just like everything else in life, later never happens. You just kind of get busy and finish the groceries and you never get to it. So we do like to try to urge people, if they're going to do it, finish the process while they're there. So we know we got them registered. And if not, give them a paper voter registration form, either to fill out and leave with us. That's great because we know it's finished. They can also take the paper voter registration form home, complete it at home, and then mail it in. And I'm sure you all are very familiar, human nature being what it is, the more steps you put in people's process to complete something, the less likely it is to get done. And we want people to be able to register to vote. And often the simplest way to ensure that they complete the process is to do a paper form with us. So that's why we're still doing it. The registrars, I'm sure, would love it if we got everybody to register online, but you know, we're just dealing with human nature and we're not quite all online yet. So this is what the QR code looks like. That is a woman. We did a very busy event at COVID vaccination clinics last year when the vaccinations were first being offered. We talked to over 4,000 fellow citizens there, and people said, oh, I'll just grab the QR code and I'll double check on my voter registration information. So it is very handy. As you'll see from these two flyers that we gave out this year, are going to be giving out, they both prominently feature QR codes. So this is a combination, it's a piece of paper information people can take with them, but by taking it with them, they can refer to that QR code when they're at home. That's the hope, at least. So we're trying the best we can. Okay, but now we are going to spend a couple of minutes going over the voter registration form, answer a few more questions in detail than they do in the Virginia-based training, because that kind of is, it's gotten shorter and faster, and they kind of gloss over a lot of things. But some of this is repetitive, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded, I think. A reminder, and it is our obligation doing this work, as basically we are now, when you are doing voter registration events and you sign that affidavit, you are working as an extension of the Virginia Department of Elections. We have a legal obligation to make sure people understand. You don't have to verify, but you have to make sure they know that to register, they should be a Virginia resident, a US citizen, will be 18 on or before November 8th, which is election day this year. That if they have not had their rights revoked because of a felony conviction or judgmentally incompetent, if they did lose their rights, they should have gone through the restoration process. And that's a whole other thing. So it's all on the voter registration form, but it's our duty to make sure people understand that that's what qualifies them.
I do have a question. If they are 17 now, they'll be 18 before November 8th. Can they vote in primaries before that?
That's exactly right. And I hadn't brought that up because we had our primary for the year and it won't become an issue again. But yeah, one of the things Virginia does, which is relatively new, was to allow 17-year-olds who will be 18 by November 8th, they can vote in a primary, because the thinking is, well, they're going to be voting for the candidate of their choice. So they should have a voice too in who that candidate is, which is what the primary process does. So that is a nice feature. And when we were registering people at the COVID vaccination clinics, which you remember started in February and March of last year with the primary, because in Virginia, we have an election every single year. It was a primary for the gubernatorial and all the statewide races. And so we would say to kids, how old are you? Well, I'm only 17. It's like, well, when are you going to turn 18? And we actually did get some registered, and they go, I get to vote in June. This is so cool. So it is a good reminder. Thanks for bringing that up. But right now we're concentrating on this November election. So if they're going to turn 18 before November 8th, they should be registered. Okay. Another thing for the paper forms, we do have to make sure they're using black or blue ink pens. We will supply pens with all of our materials in our bags. And at the larger events, we try to make sure that you have what you need. We ask people to print legibly. Everyone, I'm a former healthcare professional, okay? True confessions, I'm a doctor. So for me to be telling people to write legibly is kind of a little bit of a joke, because I was practicing when everything was written. It wasn't all electronic medical records. But so do try to get people to write legibly. You should be able to read it. It is okay if you cannot read it and you get clarification from them as to what it says, is to print it neatly just above where they've printed it. So, you know, do a kindness to the registrar's office when they're trying to enter these into the state database. We are not allowed to make any alterations on a form or pre-populated form. So don't put anything on there before you hand it out. However, sometimes in our busy events, we have a lot of people giving us materials really quickly. And, you've noticed they didn't fill in their middle name or check the box, no middle name. You can check that for them. You just say, may I fix that for you or fill that in for you. So as long as it's directed by the person who's registering, you can fix whatever they have missed. We register everyone. We do not discriminate, in any way. Anyone who wants to register, as long as you've explained to them what the criteria are to be eligible to register, we will offer that to them. And very important, by law, we are required to give everyone, not offer, give everyone who registers with us a receipt, a voter registration receipt. I'll show you what we're using for those as we go along, but that is mandatory. And there are criminal penalties, and it falls to the organization and the person in the organization. So it would be on me. So do me a favor, keep me out of jail, give them a receipt. Okay, so this is what the paper form looks like. The top section blown up so we can read it. We pre-highlight all of our forms so people do not miss the important parts. The state puts an asterisk at everything that is deemed, material omission that you have to have filled out. But the law has changed and the paper forms haven't quite caught up. So you'll see that first box, yes, I am a citizen. Make sure they've seen that, make sure they've checked it. At our new citizen events, if you have the fun of participating in those, the applicants for citizenship are so anxious about not misrepresenting their status because they know what the law is about it. And I found that true working in the immigrant community at every step. People will not in any way claim they are a citizen if they are not. So we've actually had people who are about to be sworn in, 5 minutes from them, check no, because at the time they're filling this out, they're not yet a citizen. So in those events, you really want to make sure that they go back and check the box, yes. And do, I tell people all the time, we highlight these to make it easy for the registrants, but frankly, it makes it easier for us because your eyes should skip from field to field and make sure. And we've had people fill it in, but no, they're not a citizen. They check, no, they're not a citizen. It's like, well, you can't do that. In that instance, do not keep their voter registration form. If someone hands you in a form and it turns out they're not a citizen or they're not eligible, give them back that form and have them destroy it, because that puts the legal responsibility on them and not on us. And I don't want anyone's personal protected information, their social security number, in our hands if we don't need it. So just give it back to them and let them destroy it. So social security number, hopefully legibly, date of birth, a reminder, has to be in this 8-digit format. So the month is, if it's August, it's 08, 032022, not just as the kids, they don't know to do that necessarily. So when you're working with the teenager 0, make sure they've done it in that format. Also, in other parts of the world, they don't do it that way. It's actually most parts of the world. So the 3rd of August would actually show up instead of 0803, it would be 0308. So, and that becomes obvious when they put 15 as the month, but hopefully they'll see that it's written that way, but just a reminder. Gender is no longer required, that is optional. We do not highlight it anymore in our forms. And so if you see that, or if people ask you, you can tell them it's not material to their application, so they can leave that blank.
Rena, I have a question on social security numbers.
Yes.
Are there some new citizens that don't have a social security number yet?
No. They all have them. They're given that somewhere earlier on in the process. So they all have social security numbers. I've been told there's only like less than 50 people in the state that don't have a social security number. And I've been told that by the Office of the Election, so they ought to know. So everyone will have. Now, for a lot of college students, young people, unlike us olds, who all know our social security number by heart because you've recited it 1,000 times, they don't always know it. If they're filling out their college applications or have done that recently, they'll probably have it in their phones, or they can call their mothers, but they have to have it, and it's got to be complete. Okay, so forgive me, my voice goes, and I've been talking a lot because we did an all-day event yesterday, and apparently I'm getting a little croaky in my old age. Definitely getting creaky, but now I'm croaky too. Last name is whatever their legal last name is. If it's more than one part, they fill in both parts. First name is their entire first name, not a nickname, not an abbreviation, not an initial, unless their first name is an initial. So, if you see Peggy, check and say, is it Peggy or is it Margaret? Or Beth, is it Elizabeth? But it should be their legal first name. Middle name has to be the entire middle name. Again, if their middle name is just an initial, that's fine. Like, Ulysses S. Grant, it was just an S, was not a name. They can put that. Otherwise, if they have no middle, and this is a box that gets missed a lot, so we are highlighting it because I don't want people to miss it. If they don't have a middle name, they should check the box, no middle name. Sometimes in new citizen events, you get people putting like 2 or 3 names as their first name and then no middle name. That's whatever, it's fine. But just make sure you've got either a middle name or the box checked. Okay, residence address is their residence. It's where they live. It's where they sleep at night. It's not where they get their mail because it may not be the same place. So for college students, residence is the address of the dorm. And here's an important thing that people don't either remember or realize. It has to be where they're living at that point in time, not where they're going to move next week or eventual plans. It's where they're living at that time. So we do have people saying, I'm about to move in 2 weeks. And I say, stop, take the form with you, fill it out and mail it in once you've moved, because you cannot legally put a future address. It has to be, because that address is what's used to determine which precinct you are in, who you're voting for, what congressional district, Virginia, House and Senate districts, everything. So it has to be where they're living at that time.
I have a question on that too.
Oh.
Sorry. What about children of divorce? Children of divorce that go between 2 households?
They'll have one legal address. And most of them, once they're 18, they'll be able to pick their own address, which is going to be their domicile of record. But if you have a question like that and it's not clear, so because they become 18, they're an adult, they'll decide if they're 17 and they're still going back and forth. It's whatever their legal address is. And if they are unsure and you are unsure, what I would do is call the registrar's office and say, okay, here is our situation, which address should they list? Because if it's not clear, and I haven't had that question come up before, that's the default, is talk to the registrar.
I have a question on that. Did I hear you say that it's the address is where they sleep at night, not necessarily where they get their mail?
That's correct.
Okay. So what would be an example of that?
Homeless person.
Okay. So the homeless shelter, or
where, or their mailbox, if they have a public mailbox, or the church that allows them to use them as their mailbox. Most homeless people have some way of getting some mail. And so and we'll cover that. But who they vote for depends on where they live. So if people sleep on, in a tent and it's, over by Belvoir Woods, they would list Belvoir Woods as their, in the closest intersection as their address. And again, in one of those weird situations, I've been doing this for a while, it hasn't come up yet, but if it does, call the registrar's office and just say, okay, this is what we have. Now what should we do? We should never tell anyone who is legally qualified, meaning they're a citizen, Virginia resident, blah, 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 that they can't register. We just get them to the next higher level. And the higher level is almost always going to be the registrar's office. So another example is students in colleges, because they have a dormitory where they live, and Mason is an example where there's actually a couple of different jurisdictional lines that may meet in Mason. So one dorm is in one district and another dorm is in another district, but they get allocated to whichever voting district they're in based on their dormitory where they sleep at night, but their mailing address may be the central student union where they just go and pick up mail. Like, if I know most kids these days, it's, if you're lucky, they pick it up once a week.
Right, okay.
So their mailing address will be different than their residence address.
Okay.
Okay, so email and phone number are not essential. We highlight it because it's important. If there's a question that comes up, particularly as we get closer to the deadline for closing of voter registration, which is October 17th, we want to make sure that the registrar can contact those people and get it rectified. And the easiest way for them to do that is email or a phone number. So we do strongly encourage people, it's not mandatory, but we strongly encourage people to provide at least one of those ways of contact, so that they can get their voter registration information fixed if necessary and still be able to vote in the next election. Oh, I don't know what's going on. It won't let me forward the screen again. Gosh, I love this thing. Okay, here we go. Next, and this is again an important, it will always be highlighted because in Virginia, and it's not every state does this, but in Virginia, prior felony conviction will remove you from your right of being able to vote and other rights as well. And it has to be actively restored. So people have to check that box, no, that they have not had a prior felony conviction. And if they have, there is a process for them to have their rights restored. Some people do not know. We will have in our little reference book, that's another easy website to remember, a place where they can go and find out if their rights have been restored, because not everybody was necessarily notified in a confirmed way that their rights were restored. And I've recently had a couple of events where we had people who have had their rights restored and they were filling out their first voter application, voter registration form since that. And they were so excited to be able to say, yes, they had been judged guilty of a felony, but now their rights were restored. So it was really, it does come up, especially in Virginia, which has, one of the more difficult processes. You will see people who are very pleased to have their rights back finally. This next section is a box that we don't use often, but I do want to make sure you all understand what this is about. It's not highlighted because it's not essential information unless someone lives at an address which is not where they get their mail. And they then have to check the box for which one applies. And it's either if they're active duty military, most of the active duty military and their family members that I have run into are very conversant in this process and they know about it. So you don't really have to educate them very much. But the second box, I'm providing a mailing address because the residence is not the same as where I get my mail, or the US Postal Service doesn't serve it. Some people have commercial mailboxes where they get their mail, or they're homeless. So then they would have to check this box. And then there's a whole class, several groups of people fall into a class where their information is protected from public disclosure. So their address does not show up, and they provide a post office box instead. And these are the categories: active or retired law enforcement or judge. And given what's been happening lately with attacks on or threats to judges, you can understand why that would be. Court issued protective order. They're filing a complaint with law enforcement. They're in the confidentiality program, or they're a foster parent. So if they either do first box active military, second box if they're a different address for mail versus sleeping, and then these other boxes are for that special group of people, and then they can put in a post office box. Okay, Now, box 5 is not highlighted, but it is important, and we are encouraged to make sure people are filling this out. If people have been previously registered in another state and they are now newly registering in Virginia, or if they've moved from one locality in Virginia to another, they should check the box that says yes, and then give the abbreviation of the state where they were previously registered. And I tell people that if you are moving from one locality to another in Virginia, go ahead and put VA in there, because what that does is it alerts the registrar to, oh, this person has registered, but now they're filling this out. It's going to be a change of address generally. So do encourage people to fill that out. And we have such a high transient population in this area because people are moving in and moving out all the time. It's a good reminder, just have people fill that out. This coming week, we have encouraged election office, election workers, poll workers week. And the league takes a very active role in encouraging people to participate in the democratic process by being poll workers. So go ahead and ask people if you're at all interested. The best answer, the best way to counter some of the misperceptions about the so-called election fraud or, illegalities in the voting system is to invite people, go be an election worker. And you will see how careful and how safeguarded that process is. And you will no longer have these unfounded theories about, gremlins in the voting machines or whatever. So, and I always get a thrill when people say, I'd really like to do that. It sounds cool. I don't usually emphasize this, but it is a good reminder that what they have to sign, their legal signature is whatever they use. Do not question it. We once had one of our volunteers, very eager and enthusiastic, and she said, well, this person signed it and it looked like a squashed bug, so I made them sign again. It's like, no. It's whatever they write, and it may just look like a wiggle. Whatever. That's their signature. That's what they use. That's fine. So don't question that. But they have to sign. Only if they physically cannot sign. And up until now, everything that's gone into this form, you can do for them if they are directing you to do it. And by directing, I mean, spell your name. If you're doing it in a public forum and they give you their social security number, do it in a way that no one can overhear. But when we do this at senior citizen residences, we actively confirm so that the world can hear we are not filling this out under fraudulent pretenses. Only if they cannot sign themselves do they have to check this box that they cannot use the signature. Okay. People sometimes just check that because they see it. It's like, no, that's only if you cannot sign the form yourself. So people with physical disabilities who use a different type of machine at the polls, and then the date that you collected their signature. So those are all the important things, and you will very quickly learn how to train your eye to go through those and just check it against it. And I do urge you to check them carefully. And when we have our very busy events, sometimes things get a little hectic, and I will show you. I can find it. Oh yeah, here we go. Sure. Why I want you to check these carefully. So yesterday at our event, anyone see a problem with this? Look at the city.
But
Well, it's Washington DC.
yeah.
Virginia voter registration forms cannot be
Yeah.
used for.
Oh, yeah.
And I gotta say, it's like every time we do this citizen events, I'm like, watch for that, please, because it's really embarrassing. Because now what we have to do is mail that back. I have to black out their social security number so that it doesn't fall into wrong hands. Mail it back, mail them a DC form, send them an email, send it to them in a letter. And, we're trying to be really careful. So it's little things like that. when it's rushed, I understand there's a lot going on and it's easy to miss, but I just say, look at the forms carefully as you can, given the circumstances, and try to watch for things like that. But the biggest things that get missed are citizen box, middle name or middle initial. Those are probably the two biggest things, other than at the new citizen events, where almost every time we do them, at least one or two Washington District of Columbia residents sneak through. But all right, it's not a perfect process. We're doing the best we can. All right, so let's see. Now, at the bottom of the form, which we were just going over, there is this little thing that says Virginia voter registration application receipt. Ignore them and don't tear it off. When you tear it off, it leaves little raggedy edges. And then when the registrar's office is feeding it through the machines, it jams their machine. So they don't want us to use that. So this year we came up with this spiffy little card. It's on a card stock, so it's fairly, it's not huge, but it's got a little more presence than a little torn off paper slip anyway. All of the important information that they are going to need is on this card. It tells them who took their voter registration form. That's us, Legal Women Voters, Fairfax area. How to reach us, an email and a website. The only part you have to fill in is the date you are collecting their voter registration form. It tells them also that they will hear from the registrar of their jurisdiction within 30 days as to whether or not their application has been approved, in which case they will get a voter registration card, or if they need to give them more information. It also tells them how to check on their status. vote.elections.virginia.gov, the one I gave you earlier, vote.elections.virginia.gov. It also gives contact information for all of the major local registrar's offices, USCIS events. We get people from all over the state, but the ones that are listed are the ones that we deal with most frequently. It also has on the back more information. This is included on a little paper receipt that they get from the state, but this is much more legible, much more substantial, looks more official, and it has that all important branding opportunity for the league's website. We have vote411.org. And what's great about that site is that if when the minute you get to it, it will say, check your voter registration site. You put in your address, it will link you directly to the State Department, the Virginia Department of Elections. So it's a very handy way of us getting a little Legal Women Voters information out there for people. Okay, so now what to do with the forms. We have some legal obligations. For all the forms you're going to be collecting, again, it's always tricky in this area because there are so many voting jurisdictions all overlapping. So we have Fairfax County, which is the largest jurisdiction in all of Virginia, but with nearby is Fairfax City, very small, but distinct, different registrar. We have Alexandria City, Arlington County, which is also Arlington City. And we have Prince William, Loudoun. And when we're doing events, we often get people from all over. If you're only dealing with a handful, and most events, honestly, if you get 5 or 6 registrations, that's good. You can submit all of those at our local registrar, which is the Fairfax County Office of the Registrars. And that's at the Government Center. And don't worry about it. When we have a different process for the large volume new citizen events, you won't have to deal with that. That's something that we take care of ourselves. But for the ones that you get, put them in alphabetical order by last name. There will be a sheet that will be in your packet, your bag, that looks like this: completed Virginia voter registration applications. In alphabetical order, just fill out last name, first name. That's all you need. Okay, when you turn this in, you put the date you're turning it in, you give your name and your phone number so they can contact you. And then there's instructions to you at the bottom of it. So what we want you to do is to fill it out, take a copy of it. If you have a cell phone, the easiest thing to do is take a legible copy of it and just text it or email it to me. I do not want pictures of people's completed voter registration forms, because again, it has all of their personal information, including their social security number. I don't want those on my phone. I don't want them in my email. I do not want them, you know, in a hat. I do not want them with a cat. I do not want them, but I will take the list of names. So give me a list and you can send that list to me. And there's information on the sheet that will tell you what to do that. And then you put them into an envelope and you can take them to Fairfax County Office of Elections. Now, by law, we are required to do that within 10 days or by the next deadline for voter registration, which I've already told you is October 17th. Right now, we don't have anything planned on the 17th. But we probably will have something on the 15th and the 16th, the weekend before the deadline is due. And that means that we have to get those to the Office of the Registrars by the day that the registration closes before 5 p.m. So if you were doing that, and I would make sure that I communicated with whoever had that responsibility. We don't want to take any chances. My own personal belief is, like I said earlier, I want them out of my house as quickly as possible. So yesterday we took in over 200 forms. They're going to go to the registrars tomorrow morning. I just feel much better having them out. If under some circumstance you find yourself in possession of voter registration forms and you cannot get them out in time, call me, email me, or someone from the league to get it dealt with. You know, if you fall and you break your leg, I would feel dreadful for you, but I'd feel worse if you had the guilt of having voter registration forms sitting in your car. We'll take care of that for you. Okay. So again, it's both legally mandated under a misdemeanor penalty, but it's also the right thing to do. Okay, so we are going to very quickly go over the absentee ballot applications, because now that we're getting close to an election again, and I'm just going to remind you all, in Virginia, we are really good at voting because we do it every year. And we will have an important election this year. It's the U.S. House of Representatives. All the districts we're going to be voting for them. There are also Fairfax City Council, Fairfax City Mayor, Herndon Town Councils are going to be on the ballot. But the big one is obviously U.S. House of Representatives. People are going to start thinking, oh yeah, voting, right? What am I going to do? So in Virginia, we have lots of different ways for people to vote. They can vote by mail, and this is one way to do it. So in order to vote by mail, there are two forms involved. One is the application to apply to vote by mail, and the other is your absentee ballot. And people sometimes talk about them like they're the same thing. They're not. You have to submit an application, and you can do it online, same portal I gave you earlier, vote.elections.virginia.gov. You can apply that way, or you can do it this way. Now, one of the events we will be featuring later on, probably late September, not early October, is working in senior citizen residences with the people who have moved into their new facility, but want assistance with updating their voter registration information. And many of those people, if they're living in a senior residence, would like to avail themselves of the convenience of voting by mail. So we help them with this. So you're likely to see this document if you sign up for one of those events. And I do encourage you to sign up for them because they're very, very rewarding. They take time because you have to work through it slowly with people. But these are people who are very devoted to voting. They've often been voting their entire lives. And when you show up to help them apply to vote for this upcoming election, they're very grateful. So it's really worthwhile. So again, the state highlights the things that are necessary, and these become fairly self-explanatory, very similar to what we did with the voter registration form. And to answer the next question, can they submit a voter registration form and an absentee ballot application at the same time? Yes, you can. So go ahead. If you're in a senior residence, you can do both at the same time. Last name, first name, middle name, birth year, it's optional. It's highly encouraged because it just speeds the process. speeds getting them that absentee ballot. Social security number, last 4 digits are mandated. I generally give the whole information. It's just the more points of proof that they have that the request is valid, the quicker things get done. We have a relatively new option the last couple of years, the permanent absentee option, which means that for all future elections, they will automatically get an absentee ballot sent to them unless they tell the registrar to do not. For many senior voters living in a residence, this is hugely helpful because it means they don't have to think about, oh yeah, there's an election coming up, I have to remember to apply for my ballot, because they're regular voters, they want to vote every year. So if they say yes, the only time we do not register people by parties in Virginia, but we do request, the registrars request information about which party they want to vote, and that's only so they get the right ballot for the primary. You can't vote in both, you got to pick one or the other. Now, the last several election cycles, the Republicans have not had a primary. They have done more like a convention, an in-person event, but this is the one place where you should say, if you want to vote in a primary and they have a primary, which party you want to be getting that information for. Or they can just request an absentee ballot for just one election. So you either fill in number 2 or number 3. Address where they live, and again, same thing as with the voter registration form. It's the address where you live and then your mailing address if it's different. Okay. And again, we always recommend that people fill out at least one or another of the email or telephone numbers, because it's just going to speed the whole process up if they need to get a hold of you. And then there's spot for if you've changed name or address, if it's a military voter. This part here, people do get confused about. If they have a disability, so they need assistance with completing the ballot, because this is again for the vote by mail process, then they have to check one or another of these boxes, that they will get an assistance form if somebody's going to have to help them fill out the ballot, or if they're print disabled and they're going to do it electronically, then they can check that box there. Now, the assistant's name, if you're just helping people and they can sign the request themselves at the bottom here where it says signature, it's in blue, so it's mandatory, then you don't have to sign the assistant's name, address. It's only if they are unable to sign do you have to fill in this information as the person who is assisting this request. This is obviously a common sense measure to prevent people from just writing in a whole bunch of names and saying, oh yeah, that person wants an absentee ballot. So you are requested to put your information in if it is somebody who can't sign their own. Okay. We already talked about most of the college related questions in terms of address. One thing a lot of people forget, not just college kids, but a lot of especially newer voters, they don't always think about, they're so used to the convenience of everything's online. So, I have a lot of the young people in my life, they don't have a bank. They have an online bank. They never go to a bank. But so they think voting should be the same way. And they hear about early in-person voting. Oh, it's great. I just go some point, I'll just drop in somewhere and vote. It's like, well, yeah, but there's a but. You have to vote in the jurisdiction. So we live in Fairfax County. There will be 3 sites that are open for 45 days prior to the election. One at North County Government Center, one at Mount Vernon Government Center, and Fairfax County Government Center, which is the most inconvenient location of all for almost everybody, as far as I'm concerned. It's way the heck out in Nowheresville. But there are 3 nicely geographically distributed places where people can vote 45 days prior to the election. And any Fairfax County resident can go to any one of those early voting sites and vote anytime during those 45 days when they're open. For the last 10 days prior to the election, there will be 13 additional sites. So a total of like 15 sites are going to be open. for the last 10 days prior to the election, including one Sunday and 2 Saturdays, where anyone in Fairfax County can go to any one of those locations and vote. So you're driving down, over, I live in the Mount Vernon area, but I'm going by the Springfield County Government Center. And it's early voting locations. There's no line. I got some time. I can jump in there and go and vote. If you live in Fairfax City, you can't do that because Fairfax City is its own jurisdiction. And when I was working at the polls during early voting, I saw a number of people who live, say, in Arlington or Prince William County. They work up here. They see early voting. They think, well, I can vote early. That's great. Except it's got to be in the same jurisdiction. So just remind young people. It's got to double check and make sure that they know you live in Fairfax County, you vote at Fairfax County early voting site. The other thing with mail applications is that you got to get it in time, and it has to be postmarked by the day of the election by 5 p.m. and it has to be received by the Friday after the election, which this year it's a little complicated because Friday is a holiday. So it's actually going to end up having to be received on the Saturday after the election. Let's not get into that. Just say mail it super early so you don't have to worry about deadlines. As long as they've got a postmark before election day, they'll be fine. The other thing to remind people is that, so there are 3 ways to vote. You can vote by mail, very convenient if you have mobility issues. You can vote early in person. I think it's the best option. You get it out of the way. There's no long lines. You can go anywhere in the county. It's terrific. Everybody should use early in person, I think. Or you can vote on election day at your precinct. And the thing to remind as we get closer to the election is, like, if you want to vote in your precinct or you want to vote on election day, you can only vote in one place, and that is at your precinct. You cannot just walk in willy-nilly anywhere in the county and vote on election day. It has to be in your precinct. And in a contested election, as those of you who've been voting your whole life like me know, sometimes the lines get long. It can take a little while. So those are the major forms. That's the major information. We will have materials that you can see spread out on the slide here. Lots of different things that we'll have in the bag that you can use to hand out. We love giving people lots of information. We're still a heavily paper-based organization because many of the people who come to our events we're talking to are older. And people do like having it, especially the one that's on the screen now. This is Facts for Voters. This was from last year, but we had 2022's is out, and we're handing that out all over, and people love that thing because it's got everybody's contact information, federal government down to like dog catcher literally is in there. And it's much easier than going through a bunch of different websites to find the person you're looking for. Everybody's contact information's in there. So we paid for them, we printed them, go ahead and hand them out. There are lots of opportunities to work in voter registration. And I already mentioned many of them. High school voter registration is great. They have a whole separate team within the league, the Fairfax League, that's concentrated just on doing that. And the lady sitting here in the purple t-shirt, blue t-shirt, Camille Milks, has been one of the major leading forces in that. And she'll be very glad to have your name and contact information if you'd like to do it. It is a wonderful event. I can't tell you how much fun these are. Kids are a little, not as interested in voting as, say, our new citizens are. And the picture over on the right here is a volunteer helping a young woman who's just become a citizen. She's still carrying the little American flag, and she's registering to vote. And she was just in tears at being able to do that all at the same time. So those are 2 wonderful opportunities. We'll be doing some college events at Northern Virginia Community College and GMU this fall. And I already told you about National Voter Registration Day. Here are a bunch of our volunteers from last year. Again, we'll be at 21 branch libraries again this year. We need a lot of people to fill those spots. So consider signing up for them. They're tremendous. This is really fun. It's indoors, it's quiet, it's an air-conditioned environment. You get to work with a buddy, so you get to meet new friends. And people are very, very appreciative because it's just before the election and people are starting to focus and they like having our help. So as we're wrapping up, this is my reminder that my reward. for a couple of long days, really believe is that it's almost wine o'clock. But really, the satisfaction you get from doing this work is it's just beyond compare. It's wonderful, and you'll find yourself quickly infected with enthusiasm. You know, the smiles people walking out of the voter registration events at the New Citizens, and I'm talking about our volunteers, it's priceless. So as the back of my league t-shirt, I'm going to stand up so you can see it. It's my League of Women Voters t-shirt. And on the back, it says, democracy is not a spectator sport. And that is really true. And here is a way of participating in a very rewarding way. Come out and join us for our events. And I hope we'll see you out there soon. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and see what questions may have come up, and you can, I'll try to answer them. What did I miss?
Is there a sign up genius already for the September 20 date?
Yes, it is. And Emma Beth, who is our on top of all of this and really good at making sure it's in the chat, so you should be able to find it there. We actually have a running calendar of things that events that we're going to be doing. I try not to, I have it on a spreadsheet. When I look at the spreadsheet, I think, oh my gosh, we're nothing if not ambitious. But we could do more if we had more volunteers. For example, the National Voter Registration Day, one day. Last year we had 63 volunteers show up for that one event. And it was a huge success. We're thrilled, and everybody who came through in the county loved it. Our district supervisors noticed that the League of Women Voters, we're out there doing the work. A lot of people like to talk the talk about democracy. League of Women Voters is doing the work, and so you get to have great pride in that. But our new citizen events, yesterday, we had 24 volunteers. Well, a couple had to drop out at the last minute, but it takes 24 volunteers ideally to do that. And that's on a Saturday, and they are like about 3-hour shifts, but that's a lot of people. Now we're in those, we actually get help from the Arlington, Prince William, Loudoun County, and Falls Church City leagues help us with those. We could always use more help. I've had a couple of high school kids who are interning for some of our local Virginia delegates who have signed up to help at the voter registration events. And we're absolutely thrilled, to have them. They are like, well, this is really pretty cool thing to do. It's like, yeah, you could actually do this. So not yet on our sign up sheet, because I don't think I've finished giving Emma Beth the information, but we are going to be on October 1st. We were asked, begged actually, they begged us to come. So I hate saying no, we said yes. To the town of Vienna is going to be doing their Oktoberfest. They say there are going to be 10,000 people attending there. And they asked us to come and do voter registration. Now, it's not completely coincidental that Oktoberfest is known for beer. And I, being a Dutch girl, love a nice beer. But I've decided that instead of the buttons that we use to reward people for doing the new citizen events, I will stand a round of beers for every volunteer who signs up for our Vienna event as our way of saying thank you for showing up for that. But there are lots of things that we will be doing. And does everyone get our newsletter? It comes out every Saturday morning. We try to feature in there all of the main needs that we have, but we have lots of needs. And in the chat, Emma has put the link to the volunteer schedule, and it's listed in calendar order. You can come and see what needs to be done. But the best way to find out, how much you enjoy this is to sign up for a couple of events and see. Like I said, I think most people kind of, once they've done it, they realize this is really cool and they want to do it more. So what else can I answer for people?
When you were talking about checking the forms after they do it, because the one you used the example of the person was a DC resident, I think. So are you, like, before we give them the receipt, which is gonna be on a card, right? Not part of the,
Right.
before we give them that we just check certain areas to make sure, I mean, or not, or the whole thing, or just like
Well-
address and make sure they're you.
Well, as I, like I like to remind people that the highlighting, because all of our forms
Right,
have
okay.
yellow highlighting. And the highlighting is helpful for the people filling it out, but it's super helpful
Okay,
for us. Because again, when it's busy and there are a lot of people milling around, you want your eye to just go from each
Mhm.
yellow highlighted section. And that's kind of your reminder. Maybe what we should
Okay.
start doing is highlighting the address section so that it's highlighted. If it says Washington,
Okay.
DC, it's like, oh, wait, not a Virginia resident. We haven't done that yet.
okay,
Virtually all of our events is going to be primarily Virginia residents. But when we're at a big festival like Vienna, we're going to get people from all over. So we say, are you a Virginia resident? With the new citizen events, because they're a little overwhelmed with everything that's happening that day. It's, I think, and often there are, language issues. It kind of gets mixed, lost in the shuffle. But just go through the form
okay,
with the yellow highlighting, look at those spots, and
Okay.
it's going to cover 95%, 98% of where things can go possibly off the rails.
You just
Marina,
Go ahead.
I have a question. This is Maureen.
Yep.
For a newly registered voter, they're voting for the first time. If they voted by mail, is it still required that they vote in person the first time?
No. But actually you remind me of something. Let me explain. They may have to provide an identification. So they may actually be asked, depending on whether it's a federal election or a state election, they may be asked to submit some form of ID. But I can look up the exact wording for it and get it to you, but you did remind me of something else I meant to mention that's much more prevalent question and important that people understand, because I think it will get missed and it will be the cause for people being disenfranchised, which is that this year there has to be a witness signature if you do an absentee ballot. You vote by mail. Was waived during COVID, and then there was some question whether it would be waived, yes or no. But because the state of emergency for COVID has been lifted, any absentee ballot that gets sent in without a signature, you do have an opportunity to cure that. If they get it in on time, they will call the person and say, "Oh, you didn't get a witness, so come in," and you can correct that. But I'll look up the exact process for people voting for the first time. But I think because with the pandemic, they did change it so that you would be able to vote by mail if you provide some kind of identification, even for the first election.
You had mentioned about people signing up to register to vote who are Virginia residents. Can they be Virginia residents from any part of Virginia signing a registration form?
Yeah. And we're supposed to try to get it to the registrar of their appropriate jurisdiction. But I've got, like, from yesterday's event, we had people from Charlottesville, we had people from, all over the state. And I don't trust the mails quite as well as I used to in terms of getting things there on a timely basis. For the small number of events where you'll be dealing with just like a half a dozen or 10 or 15 voter registration forms at most, you can just give those all to Fairfax County Registrar. If it's, for the ones I do, what I do is I separate them out into jurisdictions, but I provide a cover sheet for that. And I deliver them all at Fairfax County, but Fairfax County will then do it as official mail to the appropriate registrars and they'll deal with it. But we are by law only required to get it to a registrar's office. Now, if you see, like, if you've got 5 or 6 people and they're from Arlington, I would you can call me. What I would do is separate those out and just put them in a separate envelope with a separate cover sheet and just say, these go to the Arlington registrar. Otherwise, you literally, and I do spend a lot of time on my computer figuring out which jurisdiction people live in, because the lines are often very complicated, but most of you won't have to deal with that. They just don't want us dumping 100 or 200 at a time where they're from all over Virginia, because it makes a lot of work for them. So, and we try to say, we've tried very hard to stay in the good graces of the registrars, because you know, we like to think we're helping them do their work, and they're very happy to have us do it, because we try to do it at a high level for them. So anything else I've missed?
Arena, I have a question.
Yes.
A little off the voting thing, but if this November, are the congressional districts going to go by the old maps or by the new ones?
Good question. I'm glad you brought this up, because I had it here thinking I might get to use it. All right, you see what I'm holding up?
Yes.
Mhm.
Again, we're really heavily paper-based. I hate to say it, but it's true. We have this thing called frequently, you know, redistricting, frequently asked questions, because I think a lot of people know there was redistricting. Most people, unless you're a real elections nerd, haven't really bothered to, like, how does that affect me? They'll figure it out like when it gets close to the election. All right, we're getting close to the election. Now they need to know. So for the congressional elections, we will be working under the new maps, which means that, and there was some shifting within Fairfax County of the borders between the 8th, the 10th, and the 11th congressional district. So you might have been in the 10th, and now you'll find yourself in the 11th or a different one. So your absentee ballot, if you do go that way, or the ballot you get on election day, will give you the choice of the person you are going to be voting for, and it will be the new district. So you might have been a Connolly person, not necessarily his voter, but in his district, and now you're going to see it's Beyer and whoever the Republican opponent for him is going to be that you'll be choosing. There is a really great, easy way, because there's been a little bit of a lag at getting that information out to people, and a lot of people don't kind of understand yet what's going to be happening. The way to find out who you're going to be voting for is the Fairfax County Office of Elections, the registrars, sent a little card out to everybody. I want to say it was sometime in June, late June, that has, you know, a new voter identification card with your current precinct, because some people's precincts were relocated, with which congressional district, which Virginia State and House district we're going to be in. So that card is helpful. And the other easy way to find out whether things have shifted for you is go to VPAP.org. And they have a really handy website where you just put in your address, and it will put up your old map and then superimpose it with your new map, so you can see, and it lists who your old legislators were, who the new ones you'll be choosing will be. And that's really handy. Fairfax County was going to try to do something like that, but as far as I know, it's not active yet. So I would just go to vpap.org. It's worth playing with. It's really cool. We use that as a reference. That's actually listed on our little frequently asked questions, because it is so good.
Is it VPAP?
Yes, .org. And then if you don't want to cut through everything, it's /redistricting. And just play with it for 2 minutes, and you'll see it's a very cool device, very cool. vpap.org /redistricting. And this flyer will be at all of our events, because like I said, especially National Voter Registration Day, a lot of people are like, yeah, I heard something about it. What does it mean? Who am I voting for? What am I voting for? So we are not going to be voting for Virginia House of Delegates district this year. There was a couple of lawsuits that suggested we would, but they failed. They just announced that last week. So we will only be voting for our congressional representatives. Next year, we will be voting for Virginia House of Delegates and Virginia State Senators. And we will be voting under the newly redistricted lines. So like my state representative or state senator has changed.
Irina, that's the document you showed.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Perfect. I should actually, I'm gonna, all of you should have gotten an email from Sign Up Genius with some of the documents we went over today. I will add that in, but you now have it in the chat as well. Is there anything else that I've missed? Because we're coming up on about 90 minutes and I'm, my voice is definitely going, but now here's the thing. This is not your last chance to get questions answered. You can email me at any time. My cell phone is included in all my emails, and I'm very happy to have people call me if they have questions. But I really do hope that you will get bitten like I have with that voter registration bug and come and join us on the voter registration trail, because you can really, you know, it's really putting your values to good effect to show that you believe in democracy and you're willing to work for it. So, well, with that, I think we'll sign off. And I want to thank Emma Bett again for being our gracious hostess for this and for helping facilitate everybody's questions. And we will see you out there on the volunteer list soon. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks,
everyone.
Irina. Thanks, Emma Bett.
Thank you.
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.